Imagine spending over 60% of your income just to cover the basics: rent, food, bills. This isn't just tough, it's financial suffocation, and the most pressing question remains unanswered. Why has the cost of living in the UK spiraled out of control? You're not imagining it. Your money really is disappearing faster than ever. A trip to the supermarket feels like a luxury. Heating your home for winter is almost a privilege. And renting in London? It's a horror story. But here's the real shocker. It's not just inflation or supply issues. There are deeper, more unsettling forces at play, shaping our everyday lives. This video unpacks 10 powerful reasons why the UK is now one of the most expensive places to live in Europe. And trust me, some of them will shock you. This video aims to cut through the noise and provide a clear, relatable explanation of the housing crisis in the UK. We'll dive into the factors driving up rent prices and mortgage rates, and how this impacts individuals and families, with some households seeing housing costs rise significantly. We'll also look at the impact of government policies on the housing market. By understanding the complexities of this crisis, we can better equip ourselves to navigate these challenging times and make informed decisions. Whether you're a seasoned economist or just feeling the squeeze at the petrol pump, the rising energy costs in the UK have become a significant concern for households. Energy bills have soared by 54%, driven by factors such as the removal of energy price caps and global tensions. These increases have put immense pressure on families, forcing many to make tough financial decisions. The impact is felt in every aspect of daily life, from budgeting to shopping. This isn't just about numbers, it's about real people and their daily lives. The cost of living crisis is not just a headline, it's a daily struggle for millions of us. Inflation has surged, outpacing wage growth, which means our purchasing power is shrinking. Everyday items are becoming more expensive. It impacts our ability to heat our homes, with energy bills rising by over 50%, and makes it harder to keep our fridges stocked. For some, it's more than just tightening the belt. It's about making impossible choices between heating and eating, with food bank usage up by 33%. The elderly are particularly vulnerable, often living on fixed incomes that haven't increased in years, struggling to keep up with the rising costs. The Brexit fallout has been significant, leading to trade disruptions and changes in regulations across various sectors. These issues have driven up costs, with businesses facing increased expenses and delays. While some businesses have managed to adapt, others are struggling to cope, with many families feeling the pinch of higher prices and reduced availability of goods. The term crisis itself is debated, with some arguing that it disproportionately affects lower-income households who were already struggling. Shrinking social support, including cuts to welfare, public services, and community programs, is exacerbating the situation. These cuts are hitting vulnerable populations the hardest, leaving many without the necessary resources to cope. The rising cost of living, with inflation hitting 9%, is chipping away at the financial security of many, forcing them to reevaluate their spending habits and make tough choices, like cutting back on essentials or delaying big purchases. This video will dive into the core of the issue, breaking down the factors behind this crisis. Council tax and local levies have a significant impact on households, often adding to the financial strain. These increases are driven by a combination of factors, including government policies and the UK's economic performance, which has seen inflation rates hit 9%. Global events like the war in Ukraine have also played a role, driving energy prices up by over 50%, which in turn affects local levies. Understanding why the cost of living is skyrocketing is key to finding real solutions. It's not enough to just see the problem. We need to break it down, analyze the numbers, and find ways to move forward. The UK has seen a significant surge in food prices, impacting consumers across the nation. Several factors contribute to this increase. Climate change has disrupted agricultural production, leading to lower yields and higher costs. Brexit has also affected supply chains, causing delays and increasing import costs. Additionally, supermarket practices have influenced pricing strategies. This surge in food prices has placed a heavy burden on consumers, with 60% of households feeling the financial strain. Understanding these factors can help us navigate this challenging period and make informed decisions for ourselves and our communities. Rising transportation costs in the UK are a significant part of the cost of living crisis. Public transport fares have increased, making commuting more expensive for many. Fuel prices have also surged, adding to the financial strain on households. These rising costs mean that our money doesn't stretch as far, making it tougher to afford everyday essentials. In rural areas, where public transport options are limited, the impact is even more pronounced, leaving residents with fewer affordable travel choices. The rise of subscription living is reshaping household budgets and financial dependency in the UK. One major impact is the shift in how we allocate our monthly expenses. For instance, households now spend a significant portion of their budget on various subscriptions, from streaming services to meal kits. These recurring costs can add up quickly, affecting the overall financial health of a household. Think about your monthly subscriptions for entertainment, food, and even fitness. Each one chips away at your disposable income. Another consequence is the increased financial dependency on these services. For example, many people find it hard to cancel subscriptions even when they need to cut back on spending. This dependency, combined with the convenience these services offer, has created a new financial landscape. Just look at how integral these subscriptions have become to our daily lives, making it challenging to manage household budgets effectively. The financial risks associated with subscription-based living are significant. As more of our spending becomes tied to these recurring costs, it leaves less room for savings and emergency funds, making consumers more vulnerable to financial instability. Wages, the other side of the coin. While inflation erodes our earnings, wage stagnation makes it worse. When wages lag behind inflation, our income buys less. Imagine earning the same but paying 10% more for groceries. This double whammy hits struggling households hard. The UK has faced wage stagnation for over a decade. Real wages have remained stagnant. As living costs rise, wages haven't kept up. Since 2008, real wages have barely moved. Many feel they're working harder but falling behind. Corporate price gouging exacerbates this issue, raising ethical concerns about business practices and their impact on consumers. Companies are increasing prices unfairly, making it harder for consumers to afford basic necessities. This practice not only deepens financial distress, but also sparks widespread frustration and calls for greater corporate accountability. Wage stagnation is something many of us feel every day. Despite working hard, our paychecks don't seem to stretch as far as they used to. This is due to a mix of globalization and technological advancements. The decline of traditional industries and the rise of automation have reduced the bargaining power of many workers. For instance, factory jobs that once paid £15 an hour are now replaced by automated systems. The gig economy, while offering flexibility, often means lower pay and job insecurity. Many gig workers earn less than £10 an hour, making it hard to keep up with rising living costs. This gap between what we earn and what we need to spend has created a perfect storm for the cost of living crisis. Global shocks, a world interconnected. The UK economy, like all others, does not exist in a vacuum. It is part of a complex and interconnected global system, vulnerable to shocks and disruptions originating from far beyond its borders. In recent years, the UK has been hit hard by a series of global shocks that have contributed to the cost of living crisis. One of the most significant shocks has been the COVID-19 pandemic, which triggered unprecedented economic disruption worldwide. Lockdowns and restrictions, while necessary to protect public health, brought many industries to a standstill, disrupting supply chains and leading to shortages and price hikes. For instance, the price of groceries in the UK rose by 5.9% in 2021 alone. The UK's cost of living crisis isn't just about one thing. It's a mix of many challenges, both at home and around the world. Inflation is at a staggering 9%. Wages haven't kept up, and global events have shaken things up. Add Brexit to the mix, and it's no wonder families are feeling the pinch. Leaving the EU has made things even tougher. It's a complicated issue, but it's definitely added to our cost of living woes. Brexit has brought more red tape and trade barriers, making it pricier to bring goods from the EU. This means higher prices on the shelves for all of us. This has led to a noticeable increase in prices for everyday items. For instance, the cost of groceries has risen by an average of 5% since Brexit. Small businesses are feeling the pinch too, with many reporting a 10% drop in revenue. The uncertainty surrounding Brexit has also made business owners hesitant to invest. This hesitation has slowed economic growth, which is now projected to be just 1.2% this year. The cost of living crisis is a complex and multifaceted issue, with no easy solutions. However, by understanding the factors driving this crisis, we can begin to develop effective responses and mitigate the impact on individuals, families, and the wider UK economy. Behind the cold statistics and economic jargon lies a stark reality. The cost of living crisis is pushing millions of Britons to the brink. It's the single mum skipping meals to feed her children, a choice faced by over 2 million parents in the UK. The elderly couple huddled under blankets to avoid turning on the heating, a reality for nearly 1 in 4 pensioners. The young family forced to choose between rent and childcare, a dilemma for countless households. For many, the crisis is a constant source of anxiety, a dark cloud hanging over their daily lives, affecting 70% of the population. The weekly shop becomes a military operation, meticulously planned and budgeted down to the last penny, with food prices up by 10% in the past year. Holidays and luxuries become a distant memory, replaced by a relentless focus on survival, as 60% of families have canceled their vacations. The emotional toll of this crisis is immense and deeply personal. The constant stress of making ends meet affects nearly 70% of households, impacting mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. The fear of losing one's home, which affects 1 in 5 families, and not being able to provide for one's family, a reality for 30% of parents, can be crippling. One of the most alarming consequences of the cost of living crisis is the rise of food poverty. Food banks, once a last resort for the most desperate, have become a lifeline for a growing number of Britons struggling to put food on the table. In 2022, over 2.5 million people relied on food banks, a number that continues to rise. Families are forced to rely on charity to feed their children, a situation that is both heartbreaking and unacceptable in a nation as wealthy as the UK. Imagine having to choose between heating your home and feeding your kids. The queues outside food banks grow longer each week, a stark visual representation of the crisis gripping the nation. It's a reality that hits home for millions. As energy prices skyrocket, more and more Britons are facing a chilling reality: fuel poverty. This means being unable to afford to adequately heat their homes, leading to a cascade of negative consequences for physical and mental health. Elderly people are particularly vulnerable to fuel poverty, often living in poorly insulated homes and on fixed incomes that are not keeping pace with rising energy bills. The cold can exacerbate existing health conditions, leading to increased hospital admissions and even premature deaths. In fact, over 10,000 deaths each year in the UK are linked to cold homes. By 2025, the cost of living in the UK has skyrocketed, making it nearly impossible for many to secure their financial future. The emotional and financial strain is overwhelming, with families barely scraping by. Over 60% of young adults now find it difficult to save for a home. This chapter dives into the stark realities faced by those priced out of their future, examining the systemic issues and exploring potential solutions to this escalating crisis. Many are forced to live with their parents longer, delaying significant life milestones like starting a family or advancing their careers. Nearly 40% of young adults now live with their parents, a number that continues to rise. As the cost of living crisis deepens, affecting millions of households, scrutiny of the government's response intensifies. Critics argue the government has been slow to react, failing to grasp the severity of the situation, with 1 in 5 families now struggling to pay their bills. Calls for decisive action come from all sides. The government points to measures like the energy price cap, one-off payments to low-income households, and a cut to fuel duty. But many argue these measures are not enough, with inflation hitting a 30-year high. The government's response to the cost of living crisis has been a mix of measures, from short-term relief packages like the £650 cost of living payment to longer-term plans aimed at boosting economic growth. But are these measures working? Critics argue they fall short, pointing out that inflation hit 9.1% in May 2022, the highest in 40 years. One major hurdle for the government is the complexity of the crisis. Rising inflation, driven by global factors like the war in Ukraine and supply chain disruptions, is proving tough to control. Meanwhile, wage stagnation, with average wages barely growing over the past decade, is making it harder for families to cope with rising prices. As the cost of living crisis has deepened, it has become increasingly politicized, with both the government and opposition parties seeking to gain the upper hand. The issue has dominated parliamentary debates, media coverage, and public discourse, becoming a key battleground in the fight for public opinion. The opposition has accused the government of being out of touch with the realities facing ordinary people, pointing to the government's own wealth and privilege as evidence of their disconnect. They have called for more radical action, such as a windfall tax on energy companies and a freeze on energy bills. The cost of living crisis has laid bare the stark divisions in British society. For many, it's a daily struggle to make ends meet. The crisis is perceived differently across the board, and so are the solutions. While nearly everyone agrees that the crisis is real and causing hardship, with 1 in 4 families struggling to pay their bills, there's less agreement on how to fix it. Some believe the government should step in more, increasing benefits and providing direct support to households. Expanding the Warm Homes Discount Scheme, which currently helps over 2 million households, is one suggestion. Another is introducing a windfall tax on energy companies, which made record profits last year. Others argue we should tackle the root causes, like investing in renewable energy and improving energy efficiency. Boosting wages and making homes more energy efficient could provide long-term relief for millions. The cost of living crisis can feel overwhelming, but there are steps to navigate these financial waters. Start by creating a realistic budget and tracking every penny. Identify areas to cut back, like that £3 daily coffee. Switch to cheaper supermarkets and find affordable leisure activities. Beyond the budget community and collective action, the cost of living crisis affects us all. Over 60% of UK households are feeling the pinch. From local initiatives to national campaigns, we can turn our concerns into meaningful action. Support local food banks and charities. Did you know? Over 2 million people rely on food banks in the UK. These organizations provide vital assistance to those in need. Every little bit helps. Every purchase we make is like casting a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. With the cost of living crisis affecting us all, this conscious consumerism becomes even more crucial. By aligning our spending with our values, we can support businesses that prioritize ethical practices, fair wages, and environmental sustainability. Consider switching to ethical banks and financial institutions that invest in renewable energy, social enterprises, and community development projects. By choosing where you bank, you can ensure that your money is working towards a more just and sustainable future. For instance, ethical banks often invest up to 80% of their funds in community projects and renewable energy. While dealing with the immediate challenges of the cost of living crisis is essential, it's just as important to think about our future resilience. This means arming ourselves with the skills, knowledge, and flexibility to succeed in a constantly changing economy. Consider looking for opportunities for professional growth, whether it's taking online courses, attending workshops, or going back to school. Upskilling and reskilling can boost your employability, open up new career opportunities, and potentially increase your earnings by up to 20% in the long run. The UK's cost of living crisis isn't just a temporary hiccup, it's a defining moment for all of us. It has revealed the deep cracks in our society, showing how vulnerable many of us are and how even the middle class is feeling the pinch. The sight of families queuing at food banks, pensioners shivering in the cold, and young people unable to afford their own homes are not just numbers. They are a glaring sign that our system is letting too many of us down. The road ahead is undeniably filled with uncertainty. Global inflation rates are soaring, with no signs of slowing down. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine continues to impact the global economy. Here in the UK, our economic outlook remains shaky, with growth slowing and a 60% chance of recession looming. Yet, in this uncertainty, there are also new opportunities. The cost of living crisis has created a sense of urgency and a collective realization that we need change now more than ever. Tackling the cost of living crisis is something we all need to do together. It involves businesses, communities, and every single one of us. We all have a role in building a fair society. Businesses should pay fair wages, at least £10 per hour, and ensure job security. Communities need to support each other and keep those in power accountable. The UK's cost of living crisis is a stark reminder of the challenges we face daily, both at home and around the world. It has tested our resilience, exposed our vulnerabilities, and forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society. With inflation hitting 9% and energy bills soaring by 54%, many of us are feeling the pinch. Yet even amidst these challenges, there is hope. The human spirit is remarkably resilient, and throughout history, we have consistently found ways to overcome adversity, to innovate, and to build a better future. Remember the 2008 financial crisis? We bounced back stronger. The cost of living crisis, for all its hardships, has also ignited a spark of determination, a collective desire for change, and a renewed focus on the values that bind us together. Over 70% of us believe in community support now more than ever. The cost of living crisis isn't just about numbers. It's about real people, real lives, and real struggles. Drop a comment below and share your story. We pour hours into creating content that actually matter. So if you want to support us all, it takes is one click. Subscribe now and be part of something real.